In the quiet town of Hale, Maryland, where time seemed to flow slower than usual, lived Maggie Carpenter, a young woman with a dazzling smile and a restless spirit. She was known in the neighborhood not only for her beauty and kindness, but also for her sad fame as the runaway bride. 3 times Maggie made it to the altar, 3 times she saw the hope and awe in her groomsman's eyes, and 3 times she panicked and fled, leaving behind heartbreak and bewilderment. The first was Bob, a school teacher whom Maggie had dated back in high school. The wedding was set for a warm spring day, but hours before the ceremony, Maggie suddenly felt fear gripping her. She ran away, leaving Bob bewildered at the altar and leaving behind rumors that quickly spread throughout the town. Then there was George, the local dentist, a charming and successful man. Maggie seemed happy, they made plans for the future together. However, when it came time to say their vows, panic came over her again, and Maggie, without saying a word, ran away again, leaving George to his fate. The third was Frank, the soccer coach, brutal and confident. Maggie even went so far as to say "I agree," but at the last moment she was overwhelmed by fear again. She broke out of Frank's embrace and in a wedding dress fled in an unknown direction, leaving another man with a wound in his heart and ridicule from those around him. These 3 escapes made Maggie something of a legend in Hale. Some sympathized with her, seeing her as a poor girl confused about her feelings, while others condemned her for her irresponsibility and selfishness. For the press, she became a sensation, and she was nicknamed the Runaway Bride. But Maggie went on with her life, working in her family's hardware store and trying not to think about what had happened. She knew she was running from something, but she didn't realize exactly what it was. Meanwhile, in New York, Ike Graham, the famous journalist whose inquisitive mind and sharp tongue had earned him success, was reveling in another sensational story. A carelessly thrown remark in a pub about Maggie the Runaway Bride, backed up by inaccurate facts, turns into a scathing article that calls into question not only Maggie's actions, but the whole essence of romance and the institution of marriage. This article makes Ike famous and at the same time jeopardizes his reputation. When the truth comes out, he is fired from the newspaper. Determined to right his wrongs and restore his reputation, Ike travels to Hale to meet Maggie in person and write a true story. Upon arriving in Hale, Ike immediately catches the attention of the residents with his urban manner and tenacious gaze. Maggie, skeptical of Ike at first, is reluctant to become the hero of a new sensation. She keeps him at a distance, not revealing her feelings and emotions. However, Ike, bribing Maggie with his persistence and honest interest, gradually begins to gain her trust. Spending time together, Ike and Maggie get to know each other better. They argue about life, love and marriage, and in each of their conversations their different views of the world are revealed. Ike, an urban cynic accustomed to rational thinking, sees Maggie as an enigma he is trying to solve. Maggie, on the other hand, despite her escapades, dreams deep inside of love and family happiness, but doesn't understand how to find it without running away. Ike begins to notice that Maggie tends to adjust to her suitors, changing her tastes and preferences. For Bob, she suddenly began to like sports, for George became a foodie, and with Frank she suddenly liked to be at soccer games. She was like a chameleon changing under the influence of the expectations of others, not realizing who she really is. Ike becomes more and more involved in Maggie's life. He gets to know her family of boisterous and loving parents, a jokester grandfather, and a grandmother who always tries to keep everyone fed. He witnesses her work in the family store and gradually realizes that behind the facade of a runaway bride lies a kind and vulnerable girl. At the same time, Maggie, watching Ike, begins to see in him a man who does not judge, but sincerely wants to understand her. She opens up to him about her fears and doubts, tells him about her past relationships and the feeling of panic that overtook her on her wedding day. Soon feelings arise between them. They spend their evenings walking through Hale's picturesque neighborhoods, discussing their dreams and hopes. Ike teaches Maggie to trust herself and listen to her heart. Maggie, in turn, shows Ike what genuine kindness and warmth of heart are all about. Amidst the developing relationship, Maggie receives another marriage proposal, this time from Bob, her first fiancé. He's back in town and seems a changed, matured man. Once again, the wedding preparations begin. Ike, feeling that he is losing Maggie, decides to leave, but before leaving Maggie asks him to stay to witness the wedding. On the day of the wedding, watching Maggie, in a dazzling white dress, stand at the altar, Ike realizes he can't leave. He realizes that he has fallen in love with her, and that Maggie will likely run away again. In that moment, he realizes that Maggie's main problem isn't her fear of marriage, but the fact that she has never truly lived for herself. She has always tried to be what those around her wanted her to be, rather than who she really is. When the priest asks Maggie if she agrees to marry Bob, she, taking a deep breath, refuses. But this time her refusal is not due to panic. It is the first time she has felt free from the expectations of others and made a decision based on her own feelings. She has honestly told Bob that she doesn't love him and that she has probably spent her whole life trying to find herself, not the right husband. Maggie turns to Ike and confesses her feelings to him. For the first time, she confesses her true desires and fears without trying to hide or change anything. She realizes that she doesn't need to run from herself, she just needs to find herself and love. She realizes that being with Ike means being herself, and that this is exactly what she has been searching for. Ike, unable to contain his feelings, tells Maggie that he loves her. They declare their love for each other to the applause and amazement of the guests. And while they haven't run off anywhere, they've both started down a new path. A journey where there is no room for pretense and fear, but only love and trust. Maggie and Ike stand on the doorstep of the Carpenter house. Maggie is cooking eggs, but not the way Bob, George, or Frank would. She does it the way she likes it, recognizing her own tastes and desires. They laugh as they look at each other, realizing that they have found each other and found what they have been looking for all their lives. Instead of running away, they walk towards the future together, holding hands and enjoying each day, knowing that their love is not an escape from themselves, but a journey towards themselves.